What's up guys, Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp extension tutorial for you. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use JHS Powerbar's drop components function, along with the random scale and rotate function, in order to create kind of a random forest within SketchUp. And before I get started, today's video is brought to you by the SketchUp Essentials course. The SketchUp Essentials course is a course that I created to give you kind of a start to finish training in SketchUp. So we go through everything from the basic tools to some advanced functions, all the way through modeling for interior design, exporting to layout, and also some photorealistic rendering. So if that's something you're interested in, you want to take your SketchUp training to the next level, make sure you check that out at TheSketchUpEssentials.com/course. Now let's go ahead and just jump into it. So we're going to use a couple of the tools within JHS Powerbar in order to do this. And so I'll link to some other videos about JHS Powerbar as well, but I've been just kind of trying to get a little bit more in depth on some of the tools that are located within JHS Powerbar. And so in this case, what I want to do is I want to create a terrain using the sandbox tools, and then I want to use this extension to kind of randomly drop some trees on that face. And so in order to do that, to start off, we're going to draw our terrain. And so for the terrain, you're just going to use the sandbox tools from scratch option. I'm going to go ahead and set my grid to about 3 feet, and I'm just going to draw a grid. And we're going to make this big enough that we can kind of spread some trees across it. So you can make this as big as you want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to use the smooth tool in order to just give this kind of some height. So more for demonstration purposes than anything else, but you can see how I'm coming in here and I'm just kind of pushing some of this up and pushing some of this down. And I'll try to remember to link to a video on sandbox tools as well. But what this did is this gave us basically a 3D terrain that we can now drop our different trees on. And so the first thing I'm going to do from here is I'm going to save my model. And anytime you do something like this, when you start bringing in a ton of components, that sort of thing, it's generally a good idea to save your model. And so what I want to do is I want to bring in a bunch of trees and I want to drop them on this face. And if I wanted to, I could drag those in from the 3D warehouse and just try to place them myself. In this case, what I'm going to do instead is I'm kind of going to place those on a flat face up above and drop them down onto the terrain. That way it'll drop this down so that the base of those trees goes on the terrain without me having to do it manually. And so the first thing that I'm going to do, and this is kind of optional, but it makes things easier for me, is I'm just going to draw basically a flat face up above that kind of corresponds to my terrain. So I just drew a pair of lines straight up, and I just drew this face. And what that allows me to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to import basically a tree from the 3D warehouse. And in this case, I'm going to start off and I'm going to download just one of these 2D trees. And what I may do a little bit later is swap that out for a higher polygon tree. But for right now, I'm going to use this because it's really fast to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here. This is one of SketchUp's 2D tree models. And I'm going to go ahead and click download, and it's going to ask if I want to load this directly into my SketchUp model, and I'm going to say yes, and I'm just going to click somewhere on this face to place my tree. And so from here, what you can do is you can either put this in kind of a grid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the move tool in copy mode to create a bunch of copies of this. So select your tree, tap the M key, click once, and then tap the control key to activate copy mode. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in ×7 and hit the enter key. And so when I do that, that creates 7 copies of this object. And then I'm just going to select these, and I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to make a series of copies of these trees. And in this case, I'm going to type in oops, got my distance messed up. I'm going to make a copy right here, and then I'm going to type in something like ×10 and hit the enter key. And so I'm going to type in ×9 and hit the enter key. So that basically created 9 copies of the group that I had selected. So now what I have is I have a series of trees in here. And from here, what you can do is you can either hide this face or you can delete it, because now you have your trees in here where you want them. And so now we're going to be able to select all of these trees, and there's an option in here for drop at intersection. And so when we click this button for drop at intersection, basically what that's going to do is that's going to take each one of these and drop it down. for when it intersects at the model. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click this button for drop at intersection. And this is going to take a second while this goes through, and it basically figures out where these need to go. You can see how it dropped all of these to where they intersected with this face. So now you have kind of your forest on this face. And so you can see how this is a little bit uniform, and we're going to kind of adjust this a little bit. You could also randomly place your trees up above, and I may look around for an extension that does that. If you know of an extension that just randomly places things on a face, let me know, and I may be able to do a video on it. But what I'm going to do in this case is you can see how all of these trees are exactly the same size, and so they look very unrealistic. I mean, not even counting the fact that they're also 2D, but they're all kind of facing the same way, and they're also the same size. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into JHS Powerbar. There's another tool in here called Random Scale and Rotate. And so what you can do is you can take this and you can click on it, and it's going to randomly scale and rotate each one of these different options, or each one of these different objects. So what it does is it takes them and it adjusts their height, it adjusts their kind of orientation and that sort of thing. So you get a lot more random layout in here. And so this says you can press the Alt key for different options on this one, but I don't know that it really lets you do that. If I press the Alt key and then click on this, I don't think it gives me a series of options. So I think within JHS Powerbar that doesn't necessarily work. You may need to install Random Scale and Rotate separately in order for that functionality to work. There's a bunch of different options you can adjust using that extension, but for some reason I can't get to them right now. But you can see how what we did here is now we have all of our trees in here, and you can see how they're randomly scaled and rotated. And so the last thing we could do if we wanted to is if you decided that you wanted like real trees in here. So let's say, for example, you wanted these to be like 3D trees. What you could do is you could do something that we did within our proxy components video, which was you can go through and you can select these and you can actually swap them out using the component section in your tray. And so to start off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in another tree, and I'm going to bring in kind of a low poly 3D tree. And let's see if we can find one. In the SketchUp 3D trees. So let's get something. We want something that's low polygon enough that it's not going to crash our model. So maybe this evergreen magnolia tree might be good. Yeah, I think that's a good one. And so I'm going to select that and I'm going to download that into my model, and it's going to ask if I want to put this directly into my model. I'm going to say yes. I'm just going to put it off to the side here. And then what I'm going to do is if you go into your component section of your tray and click the drop down, there's an option for in model. And what that's going to do is that's going to indicate all of the components that are in your model right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this 2D schematic walnut tree, and I'm going to say select instances. And so when I select my instances, that basically selects every instance of that component that's in your model. And so what you can do, and you may actually want to save your model before you do this, is now that you have these randomly scaled and rotated the way that you want them, you can right click in here on the new tree that you want to swap in, and you can click replace selected. So what that's going to do is that's going to replace every instance of this component that you have selected with this other tree. And so what that allows you to do is that allows you to get everything set without having all the extra polygons that are in here. So everything will run a lot faster, and then you can swap this out at the last minute before you decide to export to your rendering program or whatever you're going to do to this. But you can see how when you do that, it takes a long time for that to drop everything in because it's replacing a lot of different geometry. And then one other thing you may want to think about doing when you do this is you can see how this takes a long time to rotate. And the reason for that, one of the reasons for that anyway, is within my styles, what this is doing is this is adding profiles. And so when you add profiles in your lines, that means this is basically displaying each one of these with a thickened line on the actual edges. Well, if you come in here and you turn that off, then this is going to load a lot faster. So you can see how I was able to create this forest with these random height trees in here really quickly and really easily. And now you could take this and you could export it to a rendering program or do whatever it is you want to do with that. So that's where I'm going to end this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. Did you find this helpful? What would you change about this workflow? I just love having that SketchUp conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new SketchUp content every week. If you like what I'm doing on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Every little bit helps, even if it's only $1 a month. So make sure you check out that link in the notes down below. But in any case, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.